How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your November 2018 horoscope for Gemini. So, Gemini, things are definitely popping off for you this month. Congratulations, it's about time. So to begin, before we even get into the fun stuff, we got to start off chronologically. November 6th is when things even begin to happen. The first thing that's happening is we have Uranus retrograding back into Aries. So Uranus went into your 12th house into Taurus earlier this year in May. So themes around dreams, your subconscious, repressed parts of yourself, especially in that Venusian manner, are really coming out alive. But as Uranus retrogrades back into Aries in your 11th house of friends and community and stuff like that, you may find yourself with a little bit of upcharge of energy, things being up and down, and friends coming out of nowhere or friends kind of leaving. You've been dealing with this for the past 7 years as Uranus has been in Aries, but this is definitely going to come back, and you are going to see this kind of be played out a little bit more, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about Venus going direct and her making her opposition. But as Uranus does go into your 11th house, this is going to be a big time to connect to other people and kind of get that last minute, who do you know, what can you do with them, how can they, stuff like that. Anyway, on the same day, we have the North Node ingressing into retrogressing, I should say, into Cancer. Now, the North Node has been in Leo and in Aquarius for the past year and a half, and the North and South Node are basically just where they just mark where the eclipses are going to be at any given point in time. And the North Node has been in your guys' third house for quite some time, where you guys have been really actualizing and kind of seeing more of your power with what you can really do. You've been really kind of going more towards the Leo attitude of feeling more confident in yourself, giving yourself more self-love, as well as actually utilizing it and using it to your advantage. Being able to share that with your siblings, being able to share that with your local and immediate environment, communicating that, writing that down, like all of that third house stuff. It's what you've been really focusing on. So as the North Node retrogresses into Cancer and the South Node retrogresses into Capricorn, we see a lot of things happening with the second house and the 8th house. The second house is going to be dealing with your money, your material possessions, what you really own, what you possess, what you have. The first house, is your personality or who you are, and the second house is what you really own or what you really have. And as we have the North Node going into Cancer, where Cancer is about trust, this is about maternal things, this is about nurturing, this is about protection, this is about emotionally feeling things, this is about really kind of having, like, the Cancer being the crab, it's kind of like you have a very hard exterior but a very soft inside. And as the North Node goes to Cancer, you're going to be wanting to focus more on that, focus more on protecting, nurturing, having and being able to feel comfort within the realms of your money, within the realms of your material possessions. And this North Node is kind of like the soul's calling. It's like where you want to go. It's the dragon's head. It wants to consume everything. It wants to just chase down. And so as we have this North Node move into your second house, you're going to feel very more called towards getting your money straight, having more of the possessions that you want, being able to protect those, being able to nurture that, and really start to also trust what you really have and trust that you can have that stuff. The other thing, or moving forward actually, that we have the new moon in Scorpio on November 7th, and this new moon in Scorpio is going to be a pretty big deal, because as we had Jupiter in Scorpio, we had this Venus retrograde in Scorpio, this new moon in Scorpio is kind of giving us a clearing out of that, a refresher in all of that Scorpio stuff that happened. And this is happening in your 6th house. The 6th house is of your health, of your daily routine, of your sense of service to the world. It also has to deal with things breaking, things not always necessarily working out. And as you've had Jupiter in your 6th house, where you've been noticing, okay, where can you apply yourself in your health? Where can you really apply yourself in your sense of service? What do you kind of want to do? Having a little bit better results with that as well. And with Venus retrograding in Scorpio, where it's really been about, okay, really placing value in things, realizing that you might have placed value in certain things that just no longer really serve you, and letting go of those, and really starting to focus on what you do want and applying more of a specific value into the exact things that you want to pursue and the exact things you even have time to pursue. So as this new moon in Scorpio happens, this is going to be a time to really refresh that energy, get things straight. Venus will be going back through Scorpio there too. So this is kind of like, okay, let's relax this energy a little bit. Let's get things cleared up, getting yourself organized, and just really focusing your time on the things that matter. The next day on Jupiter 8th. The next day on November 8th, Jupiter will be ingressing into Sagittarius. Congratulations, it will be in your 7th house, and everyone is jealous of you, so that's going to be fun. As Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, where this is his home sign, where he wants to expand and bring good fortune, he wants to learn, he wants to discover, he wants you to grow, he wants you to experience, and he wants you to believe and have faith. Jupiter is going into your 7th house of relationships, of other people. And this is a pretty big deal because the 7th house has to do with marriage. The 7th house has to do with one-on-one relationships and open enemies. The 7th house really is, you know, the 1st house is you, the 7th house is everybody else, basically. And when we have Jupiter going in over here, this is really good for relationships. You're going to be finding a lot more of ease and comfort with working with people, having better relationships being manifested, even, you know, good things happening within the context of your relationship if you are in one. Jupiter is really just bringing a lot of good stuff right here. It will be opposing your ascendant, where it, you know, even though Jupiter is going to be in Sag in your 7th house, that's great. He will be opposing your ascendant, so it will be having you be clear about what you're really looking at and what you're getting yourself involved with. And then on November 9th, the next day after that, we have Mars trining Venus, where Mars has been in your guys' 10th house for, not your 10th house, I lied. Mars has been in your guys' 9th house for quite some time, and he's did a little retrograde there. And Mars is really just kind of stirring up, really, what do you believe? What are these solid, you know, networks and connections and these unique beliefs that you've kind of, you know, ironed yourself. And as Mars has been through here, you've been really looking at what's worth applying your energy towards, what do you believe you can apply your energy towards, and it's also been kind of helping you cut away from really alienating and disabling beliefs that you can have. And as Mars moves forward, and he's going to be at the last degrees of Aquarius, he's trining Venus, and she'll be still retrograde, but she'll be in Libra, in your guys' 5th house of love, of romance, of kids, of creation, of art and music. And as this Mars and Venus trine happens, you're going to be able to start to have a lot more of a healthy outlook on things, being able to be like, okay, this is what I do want to pursue, this is what I am feeling, this is what I do really love and what I do enjoy. And Mars is trining Venus, so this is really helping you establish that, you know, belief system. It's in a Saturn-ruled sign, where this is about cutting away from the things that don't limit you anymore and taking action on the things that are going to make the difference in your life. So this is really good news. Moving forward, on November 14th, we have Mercury squaring Neptune, and while Mercury is stationing retrograde. This is kind of a bigger deal for you guys because Neptune's in your 10th house right now, so, you know, it's squaring your ascendant, it's on top of your midheaven at some point maybe, it's in your 10th house where it's very obvious. And with Neptune being in your 10th house, where things about career, work, your public image, it's all kind of, it's not necessarily bad or good, it's just kind of confusing at times and very dualistic. This Mercury retrograde, as it happens in your 7th house, where you're going to start to, you know, get excited about these relationship stuff, but it's going to have to force you to think, okay, what's the long-term result of this? What is this really going to look like? Making sure that you see everything that's kind of happening. As Mercury is in your 7th house, it's in Sag, it's in detriment, he's about to go retrograde, he's stationing, squaring Neptune. Things are just going to kind of look cloudy, and there may all be, and it's all going to be up in the air. So the biggest thing is just don't overwhelm yourself with everything that's kind of going on, especially if you're doing something with someone specific or in a career type sector or career type setting. Just don't get overwhelmed. Really take things slowly. Just make sure you're crossing all your T's, dotting all your I's. Just be aware. It can be really easy to get too caught up in things. So that's my biggest advice with that. Moving forward, on November 16th, we have Venus going direct. So as Venus has been retrograde in Scorpio, she goes back into Libra, back in your 5th house where she wants to be anyway. And she goes direct, where things around, you know, again, love, creation, art, music, kids, like the 5th house is all the stuff that you want. Like the 5th house is the, you know, the nice, fun, lively stuff. And as Venus goes direct, this is where this area of your life is starting to look better again. You've been really, you know, this Venus retrograde in Scorpio was kind of like making, you know, seeing where you're trying to find your value, while Venus going direct in Libra is like actually expressing that value and really understanding what it is that you want to pursue. The same day, we have Mars entering Pisces, where Mars will go into your 10th house. Now, as Mars enters Pisces, the Mars is the kind of like the warrior, wanting to take action, wanting to do, wanting to accomplish, wanting to conquer. He wants to sever, he wants to cut, he wants to inflammate. He's very angry sometimes, but he's also very constructive when he wants to help you out. He gives you the energy to go. He gives you the energy to do, to accomplish, to dominate, really. And as Mars goes into Pisces, this is where it's going to get a little bit confusing, because it's going to be in your 10th house, where Mars really wants to, you know, help you create something in that career world, but Mars is also in a very lost space. Mars in Pisces is kind of like the warrior on drugs and he's questioning why he's even in war, and he's starting to get spiritual and conscious. So as Mars goes into Pisces and you really start to question what are your behaviors, what are you really cutting away from, what do you really want to connect yourself to, in your 10th house where it is talking about your public image, your career, I think you're going to have a really big idea, a big change in where you kind of want to connect yourself to. And you're not going to really have any limits around what, you've never had limits on what you can kind of create for your career, but I think you're going to start to see a lot of the issues that you don't want to involve yourself with anymore, and start connecting to something that's a little bit more higher in yourself, something that resonates more deeply with who you are as a person. So following after that, on November 17th, the next day, Mercury retrogrades. It's going to be squaring Neptune, and this is just going to be that time where you're reevaluating relationships, you're looking at everything. It's not going to be like, oh, what's the best way to put this? It's not going to be like, everything changes. I think there's going to be a lot of good out of this because there's a lot of Jupiter action, but I do believe that a lot's going to be coming really, really fast, and it's going to probably overwhelm you a little bit. So just really slow down and make sure you're looking at things for the whole thing. It's going to be good, but just really look at everything as much as you can. And then on November 19th, we have Mars squaring Jupiter, where Jupiter's in your 7th house and things are going really good with other people. You're starting to see that come alive. Mars in your 10th house is kind of like, okay, well, how do you need to act on this? Where do you need to connect yourself to? It's going to invoke a lot of change in how you really address things, how you really go about things, and how people kind of perceive that and perceive you. So go along with that change. Write it out. Again, this is going to be a big time for you to be patient. And I know you hate that word. Don't get me wrong, I hate that word too. But just be patient, take things, very slowly, and just make sure you're being aware of what's kind of going on the surface. Don't try to find ways to cut yourself out of a fantasy or an illusion. Make sure you're seeing things very clearly in the big picture and even in the small picture. So then after that, on November 22nd, we have the sun going into Sagittarius, where it's going to be in your 7th house, and themes of relationships and connection and bringing people together is going to be the main theme. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun, because on that day you also have the full moon in Gemini, and the moon's going to be in your 1st house, and it's going to make you feel, and it's going to make you realize, and you're going to start to think more about how do you feel, how do you resonate, what's being brought up. The moon lights up what we always don't see. It lights up the night. That's all it's doing, and this is in your 1st house. This is in your personality. This is in your sense of self. So with the moon being in Gemini, a lot of emotional awareness is going to be brought up to you, and I think that this is going to be really exciting, because literally right after that, on November 25th, we have the Sun-Jupiter conjunction at 3 degrees, where the Sun is going to conjunct Jupiter. We have this new Jupiter cycle of it being in Sagittarius, of it about expanding and bringing better luck and more fun and exciting and adventure and lessons and stuff like that in the context of relationships for you. So this full moon is really going to bring up a lot, and this is definitely something to experience, definitely something to feel, and the Sun and Jupiter is going to be really exciting as well. Also, that Sun-Jupiter thing lasts for like 2 days. It's going to be the 25th at 3 degrees, and then on the 26th, they'll still be conjunct at 4 degrees. After that, on the 27th, we have the Sun-Mercury conjunction, where where Mercury goes Cazimi, and this is where you're going to start to really understand what this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is going to be about. That's really rethinking your beliefs about relationships. What does it mean? What does it mean to you? Where is it all going? But it's going to be exciting. And then that same day, Mercury conjuncts Jupiter, where Jupiter is bringing good news. Jupiter is bringing good stuff happening. So as this happens, I think this is going to be a very big awareness time of rethinking about your beliefs about relationships and really seeing things for a more positive note. And then last up, but not least, we have Venus opposing Uranus in Aries and Libra on November 30th. And that's a pretty big deal, because as Uranus goes back into your 11th house, where it's, kind of going, who are you connected to? What are you doing? Are you giving back? Uranus and Aries is kind of like one more spark, one more charge. Venus will be direct in Libra in your 5th house of love, of romance, of creation, art and music, of children, of sex, of good things. And as Venus opposes Uranus, this is going to be a big, are you really kind of connecting yourself out there with what you're doing? Are you kind of you're going to feel the inspiration to act out on that Venus and Libra stuff. So that is also going to be good and fun, but don't get too ahead of yourself. And then also Mercury will retrograde back into Scorpio, into your 6th house, where you as Mercury retrogrades through your 7th and Sagittarius, and it's kind of reshaping your beliefs about relationships and rethinking about that. as Mercury goes back into Scorpio, this is about, okay, seeing more of a raw truth and seeing where you can apply that sense of thinking, seeing where you can apply that new sense of language, that new, more refreshed and refined energy and understanding of applying that, of relationships. So, yeah, and then that's the end of I almost said February. That's the end of November. So that's what I got for you guys. I think November is going to be way funner for you than like, I feel like for Gemini risings, like everything's been so boring, comparatively speaking. So this is going to be a very exciting time. And so that's what I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and I'll be seeing you guys for next month's horoscope.